The hall was filled with cold light, shining down from tall crystal pillars. Voices echoed like knives, every word sharp and cruel. The alien council sat high above, their eyes glowing, their expressions hard. In the center stood a young alien warrior, her arms bound, her head lowered. She was once proud, once called a fighter of her people, but now she was called only one name. Broken, they said. She had failed. She had lost in battle, and for that she deserved nothing but shame. Her people valued strength above all things, and weakness was a crime. The judges laughed, their voices like thunder. Look at her, one said. Once she carried a blade, now she cannot even lift her head, another said. Her spirit is gone, her honor burned away. The crowd joined, cruel laughter filling the chamber. The warrior clenched her jaw, but her heart felt heavy. She had trained since childhood. She had fought, bled, and endured pain, but in one terrible moment she had lost, and that loss marked her forever to her people. One failure was enough to erase a lifetime of strength. She wanted to scream, she wanted to fight, but the chains held her down. Her voice was lost in the noise. She remembered the moment of her fall, the battle, the crushing blow, the way her comrades turned away. None offered a hand, none offered mercy. They called her useless, a broken weapon to be discarded. The council leader raised his staff. Silence fell. She is no longer one of us, he said. Her spirit is shattered, her worth gone. She is broken. The word echoed again and again, carved into her heart. But then something strange happened. The council did not call for her death. Instead, they turned and pointed to the shadows of the hall. From the darkness stepped a figure, not one of her kind, but a human. His step slow but sure, his eyes steady. Whispers filled the room. A human? Why is he here? Some laughed, some sneered. For to many aliens, humans were weak, strange, and soft, not worthy of standing among warriors, but the council leader spoke. Her fate rests with him. The warrior raised her eyes. Confusion burned inside her. Why would her fate rest in the hands of a human? Why not let her die? Why not end her shame here? She could not understand. The human looked at her, not with cruelty, not with laughter, but with something she had not seen in a long time, mercy. His voice was calm. She is not broken, he said. She is wounded, yes, but not destroyed. The hall exploded with laughter. Mercy, they mocked. A human speaks of mercy. The judges shook their heads. Foolish human, do you not see? She is nothing. But the human did not look away. His gaze stayed fixed on her, steady, unshaken. She felt anger rise, anger at the council, anger at herself, and strangely, anger at this human. How dare he say she was not broken? When even she believed it. But beneath the anger was something else, a small flicker, a spark she thought was gone. The council scoffed. Very well, human. If you claim her, she is yours. Her shame will be your burden. They laughed. Let the weak guard the broken, and the chains around her wrists fell. The warrior stood weak at first, her legs trembling, her heart pounding. She stared at the human, her eyes narrow. Why? She asked, her voice rough. Why would you do this? The human only said. Because no one deserves to be thrown away. The word struck her harder than any weapon. Her people never spoke such things to them. Worth was measured by victory, honor by strength, mercy was a weakness, compassion a disease. Yet this human stood before the council, unafraid, speaking as if such things had power. The hall buzzed with scorn, but for the first time, the warrior did not hear them clearly. Her mind was on the human's words. Broken, they had called her. Useless, they had named her. Yet here was someone who refused to believe it. The human held out his hand, not as a master, not as a conqueror, but as an equal. She hesitated, her pride burned, her shame heavy. The crowd watched, waiting to laugh again, but slowly. She placed her hand in his, gas filled the chamber. Never had a broken warrior stood beside a human. Never had such disgrace been seen, but also, never had such defiance been shown. The council leader's eyes narrowed. He sensed something strange, something dangerous. The warrior lowered her head, hiding her face, but inside something shifted. A whisper in her heart said, Not broken. Not yet. The human guided her out of the hole, the laughter and mocking voices chasing them. But she did not stumble. She walked with heavy steps, yet each one carried more strength than the last. Outside the hall, under the wide alien sky, the human looked at her again. You will rise, he said. You just do not see it yet. She stared at him, uncertain, her chest heavy, her pride wounded, but deep inside the spark flickered again, and though she did not yet believe it, For the first time since her fall, she felt something new. Suspense, curiosity, and the faintest hint of hope. The path outside the council hall was quiet, but the warrior's heart was not. Inside her chest burned a storm of shame, anger, and confusion. She walked beside the human, her chains now gone, yet she felt no freedom. She felt like a shadow of what she once was. The human did not speak at first. His steps calm, steady, as if he carried no weight at all. The warrior could not understand him. Why had he chosen her? Why had he spoken for her when everyone else wanted her gone? Finally, she turned, her eyes sharp. "Do you know what they call me?" she asked, her voice bitter, broken, useless, unworthy. "Why would you take such shame upon yourself?" The human looked at her with quiet eyes. "Because I do not see you as broken," he said. "I see someone who was hurt, someone who was left behind, but not someone who is finished." The words stung. Not because they were cruel, but because they were gentle. Her people did not speak such words. Among them, mercy was a curse, compassion a weakness. Yet this human spoke as if it were strength. She laughed bitterly. "You are a fool, human. My people are strong. They crush the weak. They destroy the unworthy. You will regret saving me." But the human only smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but I would regret more if I walked away." For a moment, silence stretched between them. The warrior felt a strange unease. She had faced blades, fire, and death without fear, but this human's calm eyes unsettled her. They walked further away from the cold hall, to a quiet field where the alien sky stretched wide. The warrior sat heavily on a stone, her shoulders sagging. "I should be dead," she muttered. "Death is better than shame." The human crouched in front of her, his voice firm now. "No, death is easy, life is harder, but life gives you a chance to change, to rise again." She stared at him, her throat tight. She wanted to argue, but something in his voice stopped her. It was not pity, it was not arrogance, it was conviction. He rose and said, "I cannot fight your battles for you, but I can stand with you. I can show you another way." The warrior frowned. "Another way?" she asked. "What do humans know of war, of honor, of loss?" The human's face grew still. "More than you think," he said quietly. "My kind has been mocked too, underestimated, laughed at by those who think us weak, but we endure. And sometimes, endurance is greater than strength." The warrior felt the words cut deep. Her people had strength, yes, but they had no endurance for failure. One mistake erased everything. She knew that better than anyone. That night, under the twin moons, the human made a small fire, its light warm against the cold air. The warrior sat across from him, her arms wrapped around herself. "You do not know me," she said. "You do not know my shame." The human shook his head. "I do not need to. I only need to know that you are still alive. And as long as you live, you are not finished." The warrior turned away, her pride screaming, her doubts louder, but deep inside, a crack formed in her wall of despair. Through it, a small light began to leak. Days passed, whispers spread across the alien city. "The broken one walks with a human," they said. "How low she has fallen. How foolish he must be." Laughter followed them wherever they went. The warrior clenched her fists. Every insult burned, every sneer cut deep. Sometimes she wanted to shout at the human, to leave her, to stop making things worse, but he never faltered. He never once let their words change him. Instead, he trained beside her, not as a master, not as a commander, but as a partner. He showed her simple drills, human fighting stances, strange but effective. "Strength is not only in muscle," he said. "It is also in balance, in focus, in heart." At first she resisted, mocking the slow human ways, but slowly, she saw something different. His movements were not fast, but they were steady. His strikes were not powerful, but they were precise. He wasted nothing. He endured everything. One evening, after hours of training, she collapsed to the ground, sweat covering her. "Why do you push me?" she demanded. "What do you gain?" The human sat beside her, his breathing heavy but steady. "I do not gain," he said. "But you will. And when you rise, you will remember that someone believed in you when no one else did." She stared at him, silent, her chest heavy. The words struck deeper than any blade. That night she could not sleep. Her mind replayed the day, his calm gaze, his steady voice, his strange belief in her. She hated it, yet she could not let it go. For the first time since her fall, she began to wonder, what if he was right? What if she was not broken? What if she could rise again? The thought scared her more than death, because hope, once lit, was harder to kill. And so the warrior lay under the stars, torn between pride and doubt, shame and hope, while the human slept peacefully nearby as if carrying her burden was nothing at all. She did not yet believe his words. Not fully, but deep inside a seed had been planted, a seed that could grow into something greater. And though she did not know it yet, the human's choice that day would change not only her life, but the fate of many more, for mercy is small when spoken, but vast when lived. The news spread fast. Faster than the warrior expected. Faster than the human cared. Whispers turned to laughter. Laughter turned to open insults. Everywhere they walked, the eyes of others followed, sharp, mocking, and cruel. The broken one walks with a human, they said, their voices dripping with scorn. How fitting. The weak walks with the weak. Some laughed openly in the streets. Others spat at the ground when they passed to her people. Shame was contagious, and now the human carried her shame too. The warrior's pride burned. Every word was a blade, every sneer a wound. She clenched her fists until her claws dug into her skin. She wanted to strike back, to silence them with violence. But the human shook his head gently. Let them speak, he said. Their voices do not decide who you are. She turned on him with anger. Easy for you to say you are not one of us. You do not feel this shame as I do. Her voice trembled with rage and despair, but the human did not flinch. His calm eyes steady. I feel it, he said. I feel it because I walk beside you and I choose to carry it. Just as you carry it. The words unsettled her more than the laughter of her people. No one chose to carry shame. No one willingly walked beside the broken, yet here was this human, enduring it without fear. The mockery soon turned to challenge. Warriors who once ignored her now stepped forward, eager to prove her weakness again, eager to humiliate her and the human. Fight me, one growled. Let us see if the broken one can even stand. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to run, but pride forced her to stay. The human whispered, do not fight for them. Fight for yourself. The duel was short. Too short. She fought with fury. But fury clouded her eyes. Her opponent struck her down, and the crowd roared with laughter. See? They cried. Once broken. Always broken. Her knees hit the ground. Shame flooding her again, she wanted to disappear. But the human stepped forward, blocking the crowd's jeers with his own body. She will rise, he said firmly. She will rise again. The crowd mocked him too. The human thinks he can save her, foolish creature. Both of them are pathetic, but his voice did not waver. And though she hated his words in that moment, she also clung to them like a lifeline. From then on, the world tested them both, not only with words but with hardships. Merchants refused to sell to them. Inns turned them away. Children were taught to throw stones when they passed. They lived on scraps on quiet corners of the city. Yet still, the human did not leave at night under the stars. The warrior asked him, why do you stay? Why do you suffer this? Her voice raw with confusion. The human answered simply, because you are worth more than their scorn. The words lit a strange heat in her chest. Something she did not understand. Something that felt both painful and comforting. He trained her each day, not in the brutal ways of her people, but in simple human methods: balance, focus, patience. His drills were strange, slower, softer, but they demanded endurance, and endurance was something her people never valued. She mocked him at first, laughed at his slow stances. This is nothing, she said. My people would crush such weakness, but when her muscles ached, when her breath failed, when her pride broke again under the weight of repetition, she realized there was strength in his way. The world, however, did not stop watching. Each day they became a spectacle. Warriors gathered just to jeer, to laugh, to remind her of her shame. You will never rise, they said, and the human will fall with you. And yet, slowly, very slowly, their eyes began to change, because though she failed, she rose again. Though she stumbled, she returned the next day. Though she was mocked, she kept standing. The human beside her, steady, unshaken. One evening, after another day of scorn, the warrior sat by the fire, her voice bitter. They will never stop, she said. They will hate me until I die. The human tossed another stick into the flames, his voice quiet. Perhaps, but hate is not the end of the story. You do not need their approval to rise, you only need your own. She looked at him long, his face lit by firelight, and for the first time, she began to wonder if shame could truly be turned into something else. The days became heavier, but also sharper. Each insult hardened her spirit. Each challenge sharpened her will. She still doubted, still carried her broken name, but the human's presence kept her moving, and slowly the world began to notice not only her weakness, But her endurance, not only her shame, but her refusal to fall completely. Fear began to creep into their voices, whispers mixed with laughter, questions hidden inside their jeers. Why does she still rise? Why does she still fight? The warrior heard those whispers too, and though she did not say it, though she did not admit it, inside her heart she felt something new. The world was against them. But for the first time she did not feel alone. The morning air was sharp and cold. The alien warrior stood barefoot on the stone ground, her breath rising like smoke. The human stood across from her, his hands empty, his voice calm. "Again," he said. And she moved. She swung her blade, heavy and powerful, but he stepped aside with ease, his movement simple, his balance perfect. "Too much rage," he told her. "Too much force. Strength without control will only break you again," she snarled, her pride wounded. She had trained her whole life with the weapons of her people. She had mastered techniques that made her enemies tremble. Yet this human, smaller, weaker, could outmaneuver her with nothing but patience. The crowd gathered as always. They never tired of mocking. "Look at her," they laughed. "The broken one dances with a human. What shame. What waste." Their laughter stabbed at her chest, but the human's voice cut through the noise. "Focus on me, not them." So she tried again and again, day after day. Her muscles ached, her body screamed, but slowly, she began to see what he meant. She learned to feel the ground beneath her feet, to move with balance, to strike with timing instead of fury. The first time she struck his arm, lightly but true, she froze in shock. He smiled and nodded. "Better," he said, and she felt something stir inside her, a small flicker of pride, different from the hollow pride she once carried. This was built on effort, on endurance at night. When the city was quiet, they trained in secret fields, the stars above them shining cold and distant. He taught her human drills, strange stances, odd steps, but every lesson carried purpose. "A warrior is not one who never falls," he said. "A warrior is one who rises again." She hated how his words lingered in her mind. She hated that they gave her hope. Hope was dangerous, hope could be broken. Yet she could not kill it. One day her chance came. A warrior from her people stepped forward in the training ground, his armor gleaming, his eyes cruel. "If you are no longer broken, prove it," he sneered. "Fight me before all." The crowd roared with excitement. They wanted her humiliation. They wanted the human's failure. The warrior's hands trembled, doubt flooding her, but the human whispered, "Do not fight for them, fight for yourself." The duel began. Her opponent struck fast, heavy blows meant to crush. She staggered, blocked, stumbled, but she did not fall. Her training with the human guided her steps. She turned her opponent's power against him, waiting, moving, striking at the right moment. Gasps filled the air when her staff struck his leg and he crashed to the ground. Silence followed. The broken one had won. For a moment she stood frozen, sweat dripping, heart pounding. Then the human's voice reached her, soft but steady. "You see, strength can be born again." The crowd could not laugh. Their eyes wide with disbelief, some muttered, "It was luck," others whispered, "No, she is changing." Fear crept into their voices. From that day forward she was challenged again and again. Warriors eager to test her, some stronger, some crueler, yet each battle taught her more. Sometimes she lost, sometimes she won, but she never crumbled as before. Each fall only hardened her resolve. The human stood with her through every fight, sometimes guiding, sometimes silent, but always steady. His presence became her anchor. His faith became her fuel. In the quiet hours, she began to see herself differently, not as the shattered fighter they had named her, but as someone new, someone reshaped by failure and fire. One evening she sat by the fire with him, her eyes fixed on the flames. "I feel different," she admitted. "I feel as if I am not who I was, yet not who they want me to be." The human nodded. "That is because you are becoming who you were meant to be." She turned to him sharply. "And who is that?" He smiled faintly. "Not broken, not weak, but stronger because you were broken once. Stronger because you rose from it." Her chest tightened, the words heavy, too heavy to carry. Yet she wanted to believe them. Whispers grew across the city. "The broken one rises," they said, "but how and why? Is it because of the human?" Some spoke with fear, some with anger. The council began to take notice, unease spreading among them. But the warrior did not care for their whispers anymore. For the first time, she felt a fire inside her that no insult could extinguish, a fire that grew brighter each day she trained, each day she endured. She was no longer the same warrior who had fallen in shame. She was something else, something reborn. And though the trials ahead would be greater, though the world would test her again, she now carried within her a truth that could not be broken. She was rising, and nothing could stop it. The council had watched in silence for weeks. Whispers reached their chamber, whispers of the broken one rising, of a human standing at her side, of battles fought and battles endured. Some laughed, others grew uneasy, but all agreed on one thing. Such defiance could not be ignored. So the council summoned her. The hall once again filled with cold light and cruel eyes. The warrior stepped inside, her heart steady but her pulse quick. The human walked beside her, calm as always, though he too felt the weight of every gaze upon them. The leader of the council raised his staff. His voice thundered, "You claim to rise, yet you walk with shame. If you wish to prove you are no longer broken, you must face the trial of fire." Gasps echoed in the chamber. The trial of fire was spoken of only in whispers, a deadly test meant to destroy the weak. No one who failed survived. It was not mercy. It was a sentence. The warrior clenched her jaw. Part of her wanted to refuse. Part of her wanted to spit at them. But pride and anger burned stronger. She looked up and said, "I will face it." The human's hand brushed her arm. A quiet signal, his voice low. "Are you sure?" he asked. "They want you to die." She turned her eyes to him, fierce and steady. "Then I will die standing." The trial was set for the next dawn. The city gathered to watch. Crowds filled the stone arena, their voices hungry for blood. Some cheered for her death, some whispered of curiosity, but no one expected her victory. The arena floor opened to reveal fire pits, swinging blades and beasts caged behind iron bars. The trial was not one battle, but many: strength, endurance, cunning, all tested in one cruel stage. The human stood at the edge of the arena, not allowed to fight but allowed to watch. His heart heavy, his fists clenched. He whispered only one thing as she stepped into the heat. Balance, control, heart. The gong struck. The trial began. The first challenge was fire. Walls of flame burst from the ground. Heat burning her skin, she moved quickly, remembering the human's lessons, not rushing, not panicking. Each step measured, each breath steady. She reached the other side alive. The crowd groaned in disappointment. Next came the swinging blades, sharp and heavy. They moved with deadly rhythm. She closed her eyes for one moment, hearing the human's voice in her memory. "Do not fight the rhythm. Move with it." She stepped, ducked, turned, and though the blades grazed her armor, she passed through. The crowd began to shift, laughter fading into murmurs. The broken one was not falling as they expected. Then came the beasts. Cages opened, and two alien creatures leapt out. Massive, their jaws filled with teeth, their eyes red with fury. The warrior raised her staff, her hands trembling. Her people had taught her to kill, but the human had taught her something else. She fought with precision, striking not to destroy but to guide, turning their power against them, driving them back into the corner when she could have finished them. When the crowd screamed for blood, she lowered her weapon, sparing them. A stunned silence fell, then jeers erupted. "Weak," they shouted. "She refuses the kill." But the human's eyes shone with pride, and she felt that spark in her chest. Mercy was not weakness, it was strength. The final stage came. The arena floor cracked open, and from beneath rose her last opponent, a towering warrior, chosen by the council, armored in steel, carrying a blade as tall as a man. His eyes gleamed with cruel delight. "I will end you," he growled. The battle was brutal, her arms shook with each clash. Sparks flew as staff met steel. The crowd roared with every strike. Her legs burned, her lungs screamed, and once again doubt crept in. Memories of her first fall flooding back. She stumbled. The enemy's blade pressed against her staff. Forcing her down, the crowd screamed in triumph. "Broken again," they cried. But then, from the edge of the arena, the human's voice rose. Strong and clear. "Rise, you are not broken. Rise." The words pierced through the noise, through her fear, through her shame. She looked up, and in that moment she remembered everything. The fire, the balance, the mercy, the endurance, all of it. She pushed back with a roar. Her strength not only her own, but born from every lesson, every word, every moment she had trained. The staff struck true. The giant warrior stumbled, and with one final move she brought him to his knees. The crowd fell silent. The impossible had happened. The broken one had survived the trial of fire. But she did not deliver the killing blow. Instead, she stepped back, her staff lowered, her voice loud and steady. "I am not broken. I do not need blood to prove it." Gasps filled the air. The council sat frozen. For the first time, their cruelty had not broken someone. For the first time, mercy had triumphed over fear. The human smiled, a quiet, proud smile, for he knew this was the moment she was truly reborn. And though the trial had ended, her journey had only just begun. The arena still smelled of smoke and blood. The broken one had survived the trial of fire. She had faced beasts, blades, and flame, and she had stood victorious. But it was not her survival that shook the crowd. It was her mercy. She had spared the beasts. She had spared the final warrior. She had spared when her people demanded blood. In her world, mercy was weakness, a stain on honor, yet in that moment, mercy had become her strength. The council stared down at her, their faces unreadable, their pride wounded. They had expected her death, or at least a final act of cruelty, but not this, never this. The crowd was restless, whispers filled the air. Why did she not kill? Why did she hold back? Some called her coward. Others muttered that perhaps her strength was different now, perhaps dangerous. The warrior stood in the center, her chest rising and falling, sweat dripping, her staff heavy in her hand, yet her eyes steady, her voice strong. "You called me broken," she said. "You laughed at me, you cast me aside, but I stand here now alive. Not because I destroyed, but because I endured. Because I chose another way," the crowd jeered. But their voices lacked power. They could not erase what they had seen. They could not deny the truth with their eyes. The human stepped forward, allowed now to join her in the arena. His face calm, his eyes proud. "You see," he said to the council, "she is not broken. She is stronger than before. And she is stronger because of mercy." The council leader slammed his staff against the stone, sparks flying. "Mercy has no place among warriors," he thundered. "Mercy is weakness," but the human shook his head, his voice firm. "No, mercy is the choice of the strong. Only the strong can spare. Only the strong can rise above cruelty." The words struck the crowd like thunder. Some shouted in denial. Others fell silent because deep inside, even they could not deny the power of what they had seen. The defeated warrior still knelt on the ground, breathing heavily, waiting for death. But instead of a killing strike, he had been spared. He looked up at her, confusion in his eyes and, perhaps, a flicker of respect. Later, when the arena had emptied, the warrior sat by the fire with the human, her body aching, her spirit restless. "Why did I spare them?" she asked, her voice low. "Why could I not finish the fight as my people demand?" The human's voice was soft. "Because you are changing, because you are no longer bound by their cruelty. You are learning what it means to choose, not just to follow," she frowned. "And if they call me weak again," he leaned closer, his gaze steady, "then let them call you weak. Because strength is not their laughter. Strength is not their rules. Strength is what burns inside you when you rise, when you stand even as they try to break you." Her chest tightened. She hated how his words filled her with fire, hated how much she wanted to believe them, but she could not deny the truth. The days that followed were tense. The city could not stop speaking of the trial. Some mocked her, saying she had refused to finish the fight. Others whispered of something more dangerous. They whispered that perhaps mercy was not weakness after all, that perhaps it could be power. Children followed her in the streets now, curious eyes wide, no longer throwing stones but watching, as if waiting to see what she would do next. The council grew restless, their whispers dark. "She defies our law," one said. "She spreads weakness," another hissed. "No, she spread something else," the leader replied, his voice low. "And that is far worse." The warrior felt the tension. She could feel the eyes of her people wherever she went, but now she did not bow her head. Now she walked with her back straight, the fire of mercy burning inside her one evening. The warrior she had spared approached her, his wounds still fresh, his pride scarred. "Why did you let me live?" he asked, his voice heavy with confusion. She looked at him, her eyes steady. "Because killing you would have proved nothing. Because I no longer fight to destroy. I fight to rise." He stared at her long, then nodded slowly and walked away, leaving her with a strange sense of triumph. The human saw this too, and he smiled. "You see, mercy changes more than battles, it changes hearts." The warrior sat by the fire, the stars bright above, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe fully. She was not broken. She was not weak. She was becoming something new, something her people had never seen before. She knew the council would not let this stand. She knew trials even greater than fire were ahead. But she no longer feared them, for she carried a strength that came not only from her arm, but from her choice, and though her people mocked her, Though the council plotted in the shadows, she had already planted something dangerous in their world. An idea. The idea that mercy could be power, and once born, ideas could never be killed. The human sat beside her, quiet, watching the flames, and she realized that his mercy had not only saved her, it had changed her. It had given her the strength to change others too. And that was the mercy that changed everything. The city did not sleep after the trial of fire. Everywhere the warrior walked, whispers followed. Some voices called her coward for sparing her foes. Some called her strange for learning from a human. But others, in low tones, called her something far more dangerous. They called her hope. The council gathered in secret, their voices sharp, their pride bruised. She has broken our law, one hissed. She spares when she should slay. She spreads weakness among the young, another growled. No, the leader said coldly. She spreads rebellion. She shows them another path. If this continues, others may follow her. But the warrior did not care for their fear. She had walked through fire, through steel, through shame, and she had risen. Her body bore scars. Her heart bore wounds, yet she was no longer the broken one. She was something reborn, something her people could not yet name. The human stayed by her side, quiet as always, steady as the ground beneath her feet. He never sought glory, never asked for thanks, but she knew in her heart that without him, she would have been ashes in the fire. One morning, she returned to the training grounds, the place where she had once been mocked, where children had thrown stones. Now the ground was filled with watchers, not to laugh but to see, to learn. She raised her staff, and for the first time, others raised their own, not against her but beside her. They trained as she had trained, slow, balanced, patient. They stumbled. They fell, but they rose again, and each time they rose, she felt the fire in her chest burn brighter. The council sent warriors to challenge her, to break her again, but each time she fought not to kill but to endure, to rise, to show mercy where none was expected. And with each fight, the whispers grew louder. Perhaps she is not broken. Perhaps she is stronger than all of us. The human watched from the edge. A faint smile on his lips, he saw what she could not yet see. He saw a movement being born one evening. The warrior sat by the fire, her staff across her lap, her eyes distant. They will never accept me fully, she said, her voice calm but heavy. To them, I will always be broken. The human leaned forward, his voice steady. Then stop trying to be what they want. Be what you are becoming. Stronger not because you never fell, but because you rose again. Stronger not because you destroy, but because you endure. Her chest tightened, the words cutting deep yet filling her with light. She looked at him long, then nodded. Yes, she whispered. I rose, and I will keep rising. The next day, when the council tried to silence her again, she stood before them without fear, the entire city watching, her voice steady. You named me broken, but I'm not broken. I am stronger than I ever was, because I learned that strength is not in killing. It is in rising. It is in mercy. It is in choice. The crowd erupted. Some jeered, but many cheered, their voices shaking the chamber. The council leader's face hardened, for he knew they were losing control. The warrior turned and walked out, not as a prisoner, not as a shamed exile, but as a leader. Her people's eyes followed her, and though many still doubted, many more believed, she walked beside the human, her voice low but fierce. I will not be their broken one anymore. I will not be their castaway. He smiled faintly. No, he said, you will be their fire, and so she was. In the days that followed, more warriors came to her, more children trained in the new way, the way of balance, endurance, and mercy, the way that mixed her people's fire with human patience. She no longer fought for herself alone, she fought for them, for every voice that had been silenced, for every hand that had been cast aside, and with every battle, with every act of mercy, her legend grew. The human stayed by her side, never seeking the glory, never demanding praise, but she knew, and the galaxy would one day know, that all of this began because a human chose mercy when no one else would. One night under the stars, she whispered, You gave me a chance when I had nothing. You gave me strength when I thought I was finished. The human shook his head, his voice quiet but sure. No, I only reminded you of what was already there. You rose because you chose to rise. Her eyes burned, not with shame but with pride. For the first time, she believed fully. She was no longer broken. She had risen, and she would keep rising. And though the road ahead was filled with battles, though the council would never stop trying to crush her, she carried within her a strength that could not be destroyed, the strength of mercy, the strength of choice, the strength of rising again and again. The galaxy whispered her name, once spoken with mockery, now spoken with awe, once called broken, now called stronger, and so she rose. And so she would keep rising forever.